All right, we're recording. Welcome everybody to today's live webinar, Introduction to Microsoft Excel 2016, Part 2. Part 1 was last week, and if you're interested in Part 1, we are going to have that up on YouTube very soon, and we will send out the link to all participants for that as well. But my name is Rebecca Van Dusen, and I am a library associate here at the Champaign Public Library. And if you've attended any workshops, you've probably seen me helping with those. Sometimes I also teach, and I also work at the information desk up on the second floor, and there's a small desk on the first floor I am sometimes working at. And before I introduce our technology librarian, Susan Winkler, I'd like to mention that we are open to the public, and you can always come in and ask a reference question or get on a computer, browse the shelves, just normal library stuff. And you can always give us a call as well. You can chat with us on our website or email us at librarian@champaign.org to ask a question anytime. And we are still continuing to offer our curbside services. So even if we're open and you don't want to come inside, that's okay. You can check our website and make an appointment for curbside there. And we are also offering book a librarian services. So if you need a one-on-one sort of session where you ask a question and we can help with that, you can request that session by visiting champaign.org/book-a-librarian, and I'll put that in the chat as well. And there, once you get to that website, you'll fill out a form and give us kind of an idea of what you're hoping to learn. And then a staff member will be in touch with you either over the phone or we can correspond by email. And then we can meet virtually to go over your question. Let's also talk about some Zoom features. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a couple of things. First, you'll probably see me talking because I have the transcription going. And you can always turn that off if you click on the little button that says CC. That will let you change your transcription settings, turn them off, turn them on. There's also a chat button and a raise hand button. The chat button will open the chat window where you can type in any question you have during the webinar. And the raise hand question, we kind of like to use as the option for you to speak your question. So if you have a really long question that you don't want to type in the chat, feel free to use that raise hand button. And then I can make sure your microphone is unmuted so that you can speak it rather than typing it. And then of course, at any time, please feel free to ask a question while we're doing the webinar. I'll be in the background while Susan is doing the demos and going over what we have to do today. So I will be helping to answer those questions and posing them to Susan as well. So the main thing is don't feel like you're interrupting us. That's what we're here for. Please ask those questions. And I think that's pretty much everything. Let me just make sure I didn't forget anything. Yeah. And then, as I said before, we will send out the recording after this is done. So if it gets too long and you have to leave, that's okay. It will always be up on YouTube. And without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce Susan Winkler. Hi, Susan. How are you today?
Hi, how are you, Rebecca?
I'm good.
Same. I'm excited that it's nice weather outside and that I get to teach people about Excel. Yay! Hopefully it will make your life easier. That's always the goal with the technology teaching that I do.
Yes.
So, all righty. So we'll go ahead and jump right in if everybody's ready. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to jump back just a few steps here to our opening screen. And oh, my screen is a little bit bigger. I'm going to put it down at the bottom here. Hold on one second. Okay. Alrighty, and we're going to go to view and sorry, slideshow from beginning. Okay, so everyone see the first opening slide, Intro to Microsoft Excel Part 2?
Yes, I see it.
All right. So if you were here for Part 1, we'll be doing basically a continuation of what you saw in Part 1. If you weren't here for Part 1, that's okay. I'm going to do a quick kind of catch you up a little bit to what we covered in the first. Let me see if I can move ahead. Okay. So we're going to talk about the different versions of Microsoft Excel. There are actually a couple different versions that you might have. And we'll talk about how to get into Microsoft Excel on whatever machine you're working on. And we're going to talk about the kind of stuff you can enter into Excel, including text, numbers, formulas. And today we're going to concentrate on numbers. Part one, we concentrated on text. So today we're going to concentrate on entering some numbers. And then at the end, we'll talk about formulas and enter a couple simple formulas. Okay. All righty. So we're also going to, went a little too fast there. So I jumped ahead of myself even here. We're going to talk about how to format those numbers and make sure that they're presented in a way that's meaningful for us and for whomever we're going to share our Excel spreadsheet with. And then we'll talk about the formulas and functions and operators. And it's going to get to math, just a little bit to math. And then we'll move past the math part of it. It will take you back to, I think grade school math is where we learned order of operations, but we're going to talk about order of operations a little bit, and then that will help you create your formulas correctly. And then we'll talk about how to enter and copy formulas from place to place within your spreadsheet. And then we'll calculate some sums. And that's the most complicated part that we'll do today, is calculating sums and using autofill. And autofill is really something that I recommend you play around with after today's workshop. Essentially, what you can do is set up a pattern, and then once the Excel recognizes that you've started a pattern, it can complete and continue the pattern for you, which can be very useful. Okay, and then at the end, we'll talk about sorting. If you were here last week, we did a little quick bit of sorting at the very end there as a demonstration, but today we'll get into it a little bit more and talk about ways to do custom sorts and the type of things you have to look out for when you're doing sorting. Okay, any questions before we begin? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run through a couple of slides, and then depending on how the internet connection is today, I may or may not leave up my video after we go through a couple of things. Okay.
We're good though. We don't have any questions so far.
Okay, thank you. So first thing I want to talk about is the different versions of Microsoft Excel that exist. You may have an older version, and that's totally okay. Going back to 2013, 2010, even back further than that. Each time that they come out with a new edition, of course, they do update some stuff, but some stuff stays the same. Our version that we're going to work with today is Excel 2016. It is what we call the desktop version, which means that it is actually software that is installed on the computer that we have in front of us. There is a version of Excel for 2019. That is the most recent version, both for desktop, and then it's part of the Microsoft suite, which would be things like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, which Rebecca is going to be teaching next week and the week after. And then, Publisher and some of the other things that all come together in a Microsoft Office package. Okay. You might also have access to Excel Online through Microsoft 365. If you have a free Hotmail or a free Outlook account, you do have access to what we call sort of a pared down version of Excel that's available online to you. And you'll notice if you get into Excel Online, you'll notice it doesn't have quite as many bells and whistles as Excel 2016 or 2019 desktop versions have, but it still does the job for most things that we want to do that don't include a whole lot of complicated processing or complicated techniques and things. Okay, so. And you can also get a paid subscription through the Microsoft 365 Online too, for a paid version of Office Online as well. Okay. Okay, so I've done screenshots to kind of walk you through how to find it on your computer. Since we're using a Windows 10 machine today, it's going to be, the screenshots are all going to match for a Windows 10 computer. But if you have a different version of Windows, that's okay. If you have a Mac, that's okay. As long as you've put Excel on your Mac, these should be fairly similar in how to find it. So for Excel, the first thing we're going to do to search for it is going down to the Start menu, which is those 4 little windows in the bottom left-hand corner. If you have an older version of Windows, it might be a circle too, with 4 little windows inside a circle. Or if you're on a Mac, you just go to where you launch your applications from. And you're going to go ahead and you can either search for Excel 2016. Here we would search in the box down here where that little magnifying glass is. You would search and type in Excel, and then you would pick the best match. okay, which would be the app. Now, if you're doing it directly from the start menu, that's the 4 little windows here, then you would tap on Excel 2016 right here in the order of applications. Okay, and then you would go ahead and jump into it. Okay, once you've gotten in there, any questions about that? About
We
how
do
to
have
get
a,
into? Go ahead.
sorry, we do have a raised hand.
Okay,
Let me go ahead and let them talk.
sure.
Hello, sorry. You mentioned that Microsoft 365 is free to Outlook emails, and what was the other email?
So if you have a Hotmail account,
Oh,
Hotmail is actually owned by Microsoft. So Hotmail account will also, when you log into your Hotmail account, it'll take you into Outlook, which is owned by Microsoft.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Yeah, so you can use either an Outlook account or a Hotmail account. Both of those you can get for free online, and then you can jump into Excel and PowerPoint and Word online.
Mhm.
Great.
I'm going to have to put that into the chat too, just so
Sure,
everybody has
yeah.
a record of it.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on just quickly here. Once you've opened Microsoft Excel, the first screen you're going to see is going to look something like this one on the left-hand side, where it's going to say you can search for online templates. Again, that magnifying glass is where you can search. And this is pretty much true across most technology of today, where if you see a magnifying glass and a blank space next to it, that means you can search, and you can search for something, either keywords, applications, whatever you're looking for. If it has a plus or a minus inside it, that usually means zoom in or zoom out. Okay. So here, if we were to put in whatever kind of template we wanted, so a lot of the things that Excel is really good for are things like billing and budget, keeping track of your monthly sales or monthly spending, perhaps a time card or a schedule, for like a business. And there's many other things that you can also use it for to process and work with your data. But those are some of the major things people use it for. You can also open a blank document, a blank workbook here. And by workbook, we just mean the workbook contains all these different sheets. And so if you were doing, for example, a budget, you might name your workbook, 2021 budget. And then each of the sheets in that workbook might be a different month. So you could have January, February, March, April, etc. Okay, so the sheets live within the workbook. Okay. Okay. So I want to go over a little bit of organization of how Microsoft Excel is set up when you're using the desktop version. Again, if you're using the online version, it may look a little different than this, but if you can find the same icons or the general locations, you can probably find where they are too. So this whole section up at the top, and if you were here last week, this is just going to be a quick review of how things are laid out. Okay, so up here at the top in the ribbon includes everything in the green all the way down to just above the formula bar here. That is your ribbon. And your ribbon contains all of your commands and functions and basically all the things that you want to do to your data. Okay. Specifically, the quick access toolbar over here on the left-hand side has your save, your edit, basically your edit undo button or your edit redo button, and then the ability to customize other things that you want to put up there. So if there's something you find you do a lot in Excel, you can come up here to this little down arrow and you can add that in there. So you have a very quick shortcut to get to it. Okay, then everything here where it says file, home, insert, page layout, formulas, data, review, and view, those are your tabs. Okay, and everything is organized within those tabs. And then underneath the tab, you're going to find different groups. And the groups are grouped together, and the name is down below. So here where you see clipboard and font and alignment and number and styles, cells, and editing, those are groups. And within each group, similar functions and icons and tasks are going to be in there. Okay, so for example, in the clipboard, you have the ability to cut something, to copy something, and to paste something. For font, you have the ability to change the font size, the font type, you make it bold, you can make it italicized, you can underline it, you can put in a background color, you can change the font color, all of those things, which all kind of are related to each other. Same with everything in alignment. It's all stuff related to where the text appears on and within your cells. Okay. The other thing I want to show you, oops, sorry. That's what I get for using my scroll bar. Down here at the bottom left-hand corner, you have your sheets. And again, remember when I said just a moment ago about the budget, you could have January, February, March, and April. It's all going to be in one workbook, but they're going to be different sheets in that workbook. So down here, this would be sheet 1, and you can rename those by just clicking on them, like tap, tap on sheet 1, and then you could name it January. Sheet 2, you can get by hitting that plus sign and then calling it, February, and then so on and so forth. Okay, over here on the bottom right hand side, I'm going to move my thing out of the way here. Down here, the slider, this is also a pretty important feature where if you feel like it's too far away, if it's all the way over here and you'd rather be able to see it more closely, you can slide the slider bar past the 100% to get a closer view of your data and your document, your information. Okay, and we'll use that today when I start to do the demos. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and talk about how to navigate through, then I'm going to actually demonstrate this, and then we'll take questions. Okay, so to navigate between the cells, you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to go up and down and left and right. If you're typing data and you're in a cell and you want to go immediately below that cell, you can just hit enter and it'll take you from the first cell to the second cell, third cell, right on down that list every time you hit enter. If you want to go in the same row, so our columns go up and down like that, and our rows go left to right. So if you want to go further to the right, you'd hit the tab key and it'll tab you over in the cells. If you want to go far away, I just use the mouse, pick up the cursor, and move it to a new cell. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how this works. So I'm going to stop sharing that. And I'm going to go ahead and share the actual PowerPoint here. One moment. Let me open Excel. Oops. I'm going to jump out of my PowerPoint. There we go. Okay. Hoping you didn't actually hear that because I muted myself quickly. Okay. So now I'm going to share my screen. All right, so I'm hoping that now you can see the Excel opening screen here. And normally it's going to show your recent documents off on the left-hand side here. So if you wanted to get back into something you've already been in, you can click there. But here's where we were talking about those templates that you can search for. Up here, I could search for an online template. If I said like budget, and then I could search for a budget template. Or I can come down here and scroll down and see that I've got, I could do something with stocks, money, a calendar, a seasonal calendar, monthly comparisons of sorts, investments, balance sheets, all of these simple invoices, all of these kinds of things you can, and here again, a schedule. So if we had to do a daily working schedule, you can see that. So you can always pick a template if you prefer. And if you pick a template, for example, let's do inventory list, you can tap on it and then tap create, and then that'll build this template for you right here. And then you would just put in your information instead of what's in the template. Okay. But we're going to go ahead and pick a blank document to work with. Okay, so I'm hoping it changed over. And we see, so our columns are labeled alphabetically from A to Z. And then if you go past Z, it starts over and goes AA, BB, CC, all the way on to infinity. Okay. Our rows are numbered 1 to infinity, going down. Okay, so when we talk about a cell, we're going to talk about that cell as being the column letter first, and then the number for the row. Okay, so I'm right now in cell C1. Okay, Now, something else I want to mention as we're going through and kind of navigating these things, up here at the top, here's your ribbon and the live view of the ribbon all the way down here. And you can see you have your group, your tabs like file, home, insert, page layout, hoping it switched, data, view, all of those.
Yes, it's showing as you click through each tab.
Perfect. And then we have our groups like clipboard and font and alignment. And then if you hover over the icons, you should hopefully see something pop up. So right now this is top align, which is something you could do to the text. Okay.
It's not showing the little pop-ups, but we are seeing you hover over the icons.
Let me see if I can pick a different one. How about now?
Okay, that one is working.
Okay. Okay. So if you hover over it, about 2 seconds, if you just, and what I mean by hover over it is that you have the mouse over the top of it, the cursor's over the top of it, but you haven't clicked on it. And then usually that will tell you what that icon does. So for example, if I hover over bold, which is the B here, it's going to tell me, it's going to make my text bold. Okay, so, and we did cover this last time, so I'm going through it a little bit faster this time. But just in case, if you need, let us know, we can slow down a little bit too.
We do have a raised hand.
Sure.
Let me go ahead and let them talk.
Okay. I'm going to grab a quick drink here.
No, earlier when you were showing the ribbon, the graphics and the numbers were so faint, you couldn't even see what you are showing.
Okay.
But later, like right now, I can easily see, but that time it was difficult anyway for.
Okay. So if you're on your home computer, or if you want to try this the next time you're in the library and you open Excel, basically what we're showing is just that if you hover over the different things here, the different little symbols, they're going to tell you what they do. So
Right.
for example, this little bucket, if you can see the little bucket here, if I hover over that little bucket, it's going to tell me that it colors the background of the cells to make them stand out. Okay.
Yeah, I can see them clearly now, but
Okay.
before they were completely not visible.
Okay.
I couldn't read them. I couldn't see them.
Yeah, and sometimes Zoom just has to kind of catch up too.
I think it was because earlier we were on the slides, and
Yes.
with Zoom, sometimes the slides, they're smaller because it restricts the size of how much we can zoom in or out.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Rebecca. Yeah. So this is the live view of Excel. So we've opened it. We've opened that program now. So instead of looking at basically a screenshot or like a picture of what it looks like, now we're in it live. So
thank you.
And we will send out those slides too. So you'll have your own copy of it. And then that way, if you need to zoom in on it, you can always do that too.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump ahead just a second here in my PowerPoint. Okay. So, I wanted to show the name over here. So the name bar, which is over here above where you see the A column, just above that, there's a little bar, a little box up here. And right now it says A1. And when I move, does everybody see how, if you concentrate right up here, just below clipboard and above A, where there's this little, I just highlighted the number in it. This little box, that's the name box. And if I jump from cell to cell, that should change as I pick a different cell. This is super helpful as you're going through your documents, because if you notice, if you're on F3, which is how we refer to the cell as the column number and then the row, you'll see that F is slightly darker and 3 is slightly darker. And then my bounding box around it is green. But I can also look up here and see that I'm in cell F3. So if you're all the way over here and you're like, I can't quite tell, because I get lost a little bit if I try to track that line all the way across. It's nice to just know that you can go up into that name box to see what cell you're in. Okay. And then this piece here, this is the formula bar. And that is a fancy way of saying whenever I put in text, it's going to appear up here in the formula bar. Now, the reason it's called the formula bar is because you can also enter formulas in Excel. So if, for example, if I do numbers like 2 and 2, and I want to know, I want to add them together and put it in cell A3, I can make a formula that says add A1 plus A2, and that's a formula. Now a formula, I have to put parentheses around it and do the equal sign in front of it. I don't have to do parentheses around the plus, one cell plus another cell, but it's a good idea to put the parentheses in there because as we come to order of operations a little bit later, you'll see that that can be very important. Anyway, so that's a formula bar because I can put a formula in here and then I hit enter and it's going to give me the sum. Okay, and we'll talk more about why this is different in a little bit later. But for now, just know that here you can put whatever you're going to put here, if it's numbers or text or a formula. Okay, and then it'll show up there. All right, I want to show you the slider bar again. So we're going to move down to the bottom of the screen. On the right hand side, here's our slider. And if you see, I'm hoping it's going to move in. Is it getting closer and closer for you?
Yes.
Okay, so if you see down here now, it says 180%. That's my view. If I zoom back out, I can go back down to 100%. You can also use the little slider bar in here to do the same thing. It may or may not catch up with me very fast there, but that's how you can use the slider bar. So if it's too far away for you to see what's in the cell or what the mouse cursor looks like, you can zoom in a little bit and that will make it a little easier. Okay, and then down here at the bottom left-hand corner, we have our sheet 1. And again, if I tap twice on it, I can change it to whatever number I need or whatever letters or numbers I want. And then to make a second sheet, I just tap on that little plus sign and it'll make a second sheet for me. Okay, and we talked a little bit about navigation. If I want to navigate, right now I'm pressing the down arrow on my keyboard and you can see, and now I'm pressing the up button, the right button, and the left button for the arrow keys on my keyboard. And that's moving me around the board or the document, okay? If I type something here and I want to go to the next line, hit enter, down, enter, down. So a lot of folks who use Excel to do data entry, they'll use the number keypad, hit the number lock, and then just go, put in all the numbers, hit enter, put in the numbers, hit enter, and go and keep going down lines like that. Okay, so I did want to point that out as well. So, okay, and now I am gonna, let's see, where are we at here? Okay, so we've entered our data. We talked a little bit about that and the organization and the navigation. And then are there any questions about that section before we move on to actually working with some data?
I don't see any so far, but I'll keep you updated, and at any time, if anybody has another question, feel free to ask.
Yes, absolutely. It doesn't have to be related to just this specifically. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that. And then I'm going to get into our example document that we have today. Give me just a moment here. And then I'm going to get into our example here. All righty. So give me one moment. Jump back in here. Got to make sure I actually opened it. Okay, so we're going to go back to working. If you were here last week, we were working with a document for a picnic, and we had a number of different people who were going to bring different food items to our picnic, and they basically signed up for the different items that they were going to bring. And I'm going to go ahead and show that list that we ended with, which has that formatting already in there, so it looks super nice. Okay, so one moment here. And I'll have that up in just a second for everybody. Okay, so let me go ahead and share this real quick. Oops, all right. Here we go. Okay, so now we should see, hopefully in a second, hopefully it'll come up. Okay, does everyone see the summer picnic list?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Oh, I just realized I spelled bottled water wrong with 2 D's instead of 1. Okay, I'm gonna take that out. Okay, so that's a good example of just editing. So to edit a cell, so here I noticed that in F12 with Becky, I had bottled with 2 D's. And to edit that, all I have to do is click in that cell and I can come up to the formula bar, put my cursor in there and delete it out, just like I would if I was in any other typing place like in Word or anything else. Okay, so I'm going to edit that real quick. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're actually going to add another column of information that we're then going to use. Now, we're going to be super kind to all of our folks that are coming to this picnic, and we're going to reimburse them for the cost of what they're bringing to the picnic. So what we need to do is we need to write down the cost. Everybody needs to tell us how much they spent on their picnic items so that then we can reimburse them. So we're going to add a column here in G, and we're going to call it cost. And then if you notice, did you see how it automatically formatted it the way the rest of these are? Because since we did that here, Excel picked that up and it's already formatting it the same way. Okay. Now when we come down here, let's see, we've got, Roberta's got chocolate chip cookies. I think I guessed that that might cost about 20. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in 20 for now, and then we'll see if, did it automatically change it? No. Okay, good. So 20 tofu hot dogs, 25. Let's go ahead and get 10. I don't know why it's putting stuff in there already. That's a little weird. Okay, we're going to say 15, 14.5, and then 10, and 8.65 for the pop. 5 and 16 to 5 and 9.99. Okay, so, and this is just, you know, whatever number you put in there. So I just wanted to give us a range that has some decimal points in there and represents something that would seem like real costs. Granted, I don't know that all of these things would cost this exact amount, but we're using it just for our example today. Okay, so now that I've put all of that in there, now I have the option to format these numbers so that they accurately represent money, right? Because it's actually a cost. So right now, 20 doesn't mean anything here except for that it's the number 20. So what we want to do is we want to symbolize that this is actually a dollar amount. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend a bit of time with the number group up here, where we can do things with dollar signs and percentages and comma style, and then how many decimal point, how many places past the decimal point we're gonna represent, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna select what we want to format. So we're gonna start with cell G3, and we're gonna highlight and select G3 through G12. And this is because we know these are all the amounts we want to have represent money. So there are some quick ways that you can do that with these little icons up here. If you use the dollar sign here, that's I can format it as dollars. If I just tap that, boom. Do everybody see how that changed? So now there's a dollar sign in front of it, and then it added the decimal point here to each one of these. So now they represent dollars, okay? Instead of dollars, if I wanted them to represent percentages, I could hit the percent style, and then it would give us percentages. That doesn't mean a whole lot for us in this context because we know what we need is dollars. But same idea with the comma. I can give the comma, and it should, if I had enough where it was, you know, like in the thousands, it would put a comma in there, okay? If we only wanted to show a certain amount, so for this example, the $9.99 bottle of water, if we want Excel to basically average that to or round up basically to $10, because that penny is not that big of a deal for us as far as the representation goes here, we could move our decimal points in and out to have it guesstimate. So if you watch that one, note how G12 went from being $9.99 to exactly $10. It's because we moved the decimal point to decrease the decimal, and it averages out. So sorry, it doesn't average. They round up. So Excel will round up to make it $10 instead of $9.99. Okay, yeah, stop saying that. Okay, sorry about that. I mean, to confuse everybody by saying average. Average is a totally different mathematical thing. So, okay. So these are all of our costs. And these are the numbers that we can, the number icons that we can use to get to format them the way we need them formatted. Now I want to show you there's a couple of other ways you can do this. The Dialog Launcher, which is the tiny, I don't know how well you can see it on your screen, Rebecca, but in the number panel, in the bottom right-hand corner of that group, there's a little box with a little arrow that's going down. And if you tap on that, it's going to give you the ability to format cells using what's known as the Dialog Launcher. And here you can do other things with those numbers. We can make it currency specifically, where we have the different decimal, and we can tell it, okay. And if you watch the sample right here, if everybody can see the sample, if you watch that and I say, okay, we're going to give it fewer decimal points, you're going to see it's still going to say 20. If I do more decimal points, this is just like if we were increasing or decreasing it with that little icon. Okay, we can increase or decrease the number of decimal points. Since it's currency, I'm going to keep it at 2 because that's usually what we use for dollars. I can also come down here. If the number was actually a date, I can change the date and format the date. And we're going to do this in just a moment. If the percentage, fractions, so you can see there's all these different ways that you can format your number cells. If we hit general, the general cells have no specific number format. We're going to go ahead and click OK on that. And then you'll see it goes back to general, which is just, you know, the 20, 25, $9.99. The other way you can do that is up here in the number box where it says general right here. I can hit this down arrow and I could pick currency, and that will also change it to currency. Okay. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and make this column a little shorter so that it doesn't have all this extra space in it. And to do that, if you remember from last week, those of you who attended last week, that means we're going to go between G and H, and we're going to wait till it turns into a cross and tap twice. And it's going to shorten that column so that it fits with just the numbers we need. Okay. Any questions about that?
I don't see any so far.
Okay. So those are the different ways that you can format numbers when it deals with money. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make another column, and we're going to call it our reimbursement sent, if I can remember how to spell reimbursement. Luckily, Excel will also hopefully correct me if I'm wrong. Let's see. If you want to spell check anything when you've put it in here, you can highlight it and you can come up to review and hit spelling. This actually isn't in your handout for this week, but just so I make sure I'm spelling reimbursement correctly, you can find that in the review tab. Okay, we're gonna go back to home tab now. So we're gonna give each of these folks a date where we have filled out a reimbursement form for them. So that way we can keep track of when we've reimbursed them for what they've purchased. So for the first one, I'm gonna go ahead and say, let's do 5/5/2021. Okay, so if you notice, I have put the date in here and I have done it with slashes. I could put zeros in front of it too to represent that this is 05, 05 of 2021. Now, as soon as I hit enter, it's going to move it over here. Now, if that's not the way I want this date to be represented, I can come back up to number and I can open the Dialog Launcher, excuse me, and I can pick a different way to format that date so that it's represented and shows what we've done. First, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of these. So let's see, let's do 5/2021. And then I did, let's see, 5/5/2021. And then let's see, we did 5/2021. Most of these happened on May 5th. But let's do 5/6/2021 there. And then we're going to do 05/09 and 05/09. And you can certainly practice this at home too with your own version of Excel, or if you want to come to the library and practice with this and put in, practice entering the data and manipulating it so that it works for what you need, feel free to do that. And our staff at the desk are happy to help with stuff like this too. Let's go ahead and do 5/09/2021. And then let's leave that one blank because we'll say they haven't submitted all the paperwork yet for reimbursement. And then we'll go 5/10/2021. Okay, so now we have the reimbursement date for everyone except for, I think it is Tom. And that's because Tom hasn't submitted the paperwork to us yet. So we haven't been able to reimburse him. Okay. So now we have all this reimbursement information, but I have a hard time with 5/5/2021. That for me is a little harder to remember if we're putting the date of the month first or the day first. So I'm actually going to change this to actually spell out what the date is. So if I come up to date, I can come up here and look at date, and I can either pick short date or long date as quick ways to do it. So if I hit long date, you'll notice it changes to the day of the week and the date with the commas and then the year. Okay. Now, if that's not the way I want it represented, because that's too much, I feel like that takes up too much room in my column, I can also come up to the dialog box here. Again, that little box in the right-hand corner. Can tap on it, and I can select how I want the date to be represented. And you see here, there's quite a few different examples of what I could do. So if I wanted to say, you know, like the 5th of May, it would do 5 May, or I could do, you know, 5 May of 21. And that will help me because if I'm confusing the days and months, this will help me know that the 5 is the day, the month is spelled out, and 21. Okay. And if I don't care about the actual day of the week that it is, this works for me. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay. And it's going to change this so that it looks like that. Okay. Any questions about that? So there's a couple of different ways to do it. You can either go from the Dialog Launcher box here, like this, and get more options to select from. Or if you know that the short ones are going to work for you, you can do short date or you can do long date. Okay. I'm going to pause in case there's any questions before we move on to the next thing.
I don't see any questions so far.
Okay, perfect. One of the other things I'm going to do for formatting is, if you notice, we have this big thick box border around last name through picnic item. So, or actually through first name through picnic item. So we have, you know, A2 through F2 down to F12 and A12. And I want to add that box so that it also goes around cost and reimbursement. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to go like this, and I'm going to go all the way to reimbursement. And then up here in the font, I have the border and borders that I can put. And I'm going to say thick outside border for all of it. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change this to no border. And then it'll take the border out from here. And then I can go back. I did that opposite. But so the first thing you can do is say no border for in between F and G, highlight everything, and then say thick outside borders. Okay, so that has added. Any questions about that? That was just me adding a border.
We do have a raised hand.
Sure, yes, absolutely.
Not sure if maybe they're not realizing that they have their hand raised, but
sure.
I'll try one more time.
Feel free to interrupt me whenever.
I was talking to myself. Sorry.
Oh, that's totally okay. I was just gonna say this is a good time to pause and let folks ask questions if they have about what we've covered so far too. So
no, I was just making a comment on the dating formulating. You know, Microsoft and Excel is only the American format, but not global, because in some areas the date, the month comes first before the date.
Absolutely, yes. And since I grew up speaking German, and they put the month before, they put the day before, the month before.
Right,
So they
the
do
date.
it they do it the other way too. So that's why for me, 5/5 is
It's
fine.
confusing.
But 5/9 would be
Right.
confusing to me. I'd be, is that September 5th or is that, you know, May
May 9th.
9th? Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm pretty sure that versions in, you know, if you were to buy Excel in Germany, perhaps it would actually automatically do the reverse of that. And there may be a way to actually program it in this case so that it would do that for you. And if we look, we might be able to see, excuse me, if it's within here. So you see the location here.
Yes.
It's English,
Yeah.
United States. And we could see,
Okay.
we could get,
That's right.
say, you know, English in, I think Canada does it the same way we do. But you could probably find it down here where then you would be able to switch it.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, great question and observation. Yes. Okay. So other questions about what we've done so far? I'm going to do one other thing that we learned last week. For anyone that didn't attend last week, we're going to merge and center our title, which is Summer Picnic List. So initially we had that in cell A1. And when it was in cell A1, it was a little hard because it wasn't centered over all of the columns. And since we've now added 2 more columns, what I want to do is add, so I'm going to highlight all of those columns together. So A through H, and I'm going to say, and take off merge and center. When I take off merge and center, it goes back to A1. But now if I hit merge and center, when I have H and G added, it's going to put it in the middle of all of those. Okay. So now it looks like a slightly better spot for my title of my list. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into the really fun stuff with our formulas and functions and operations and the things that will hopefully work for you to make it easier for you to do the addition and multiplication and things like that that you might have to do for more complicated things like budgets. But in our case today, we're going to start with just a simple formula. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint because I have a slide I'd like to show you about how to do that. Okay, so here, I'm just going to go ahead. So what we just covered was basically entering our numbers, either using the keypad. And if you use the keypad, which on your keyboard, if you're using the keypad, make sure you hit the number lock key so that it registers that you're using the keypad. Okay, and then, or the regular number keys. Okay, so we've added that. And then we've done our formatting numbers. And this is what will be in your handout for you to play with later. And we did general, and we did the accounting, which was the $, percent, and the comma style. And we played with increasing and decreasing the decimal that shows up. So here were the examples that we did. And then here's the way we formatted number with general, where it says $9.99. And then with reimbursement, where it ends up bumping it up to 10. Okay. And then here's where we talked about the dates and the long version of the date, where it actually says the day and the date and the year. Okay. And now we're going to talk about formulas and functions and operators. All right. So your formulas allow you to perform calculations using, and to do those calculations, you need to use symbols, numbers, and operators. And we're going to have to remember what operators are, but we're going to discuss that in just a second. And the formulas are entered into the cell where you want the results displayed. And they have to begin with an equal sign. So the equal sign is one of those symbols that signifies to Excel that you're about to enter a formula. Okay. The functions are the predefined formula that does a specific calculation using values. So if you see here, we've got some common functions like sum, count, and average. Okay, so these are specific functions that will happen when you do, the equal sign and you say sum, and then you put in the cells that you want it to sum. Okay, the operators are your things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So On your keyboard, you would use the plus sign for addition. The minus sign is for subtraction, which is the hyphen. Multiplication is the asterisk. And then division is the slash, the forward slash. Okay. Backward slash, sorry. Your order of operations does matter in Excel, just like it matters in other mathematical equations and functions. So you have to think about, and this is the one I learned. If someone learned a different one, feel free to let me know. But we learned it as, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, which meant you do anything in parentheses first, then anything with exponents, then multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Okay. So order of operations does play in a little bit here, but the lucky thing is that Excel does a lot of the work for you as long as you've set up the formula correctly. Okay. And that's the big caveat, is we have to set up the formula correctly. So there are a couple of different ways you can enter formulas. You can type it all out yourself in the formula bar. For example, right here, we've done equal and then have your parenthesis, and we've done addition of each one of these cells added to the next, okay? And then when you're ready to calculate the result, you just hit the enter key, okay? Or you can select the cells individually using the control key to create the formula, and then you can tap the enter key to see the result, okay? So I'm gonna demonstrate this now with our picnic. Okay, so here's our picnic information and here's our cost. So I'm going to go ahead and put down at the bottom here in 13, I'm going to say we want the total cost. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and put another border around here. So we'll have a thick border on total cost so we can tell that it is a thick outside border. Okay, whoops. I meant to do thick outside border around all of it. Okay. Okay, so we got a thick outside border there, and we're gonna put our total, I'm gonna jump back just a little bit here so you can see a little better the whole spreadsheet. And we're gonna put in cost, I'll go ahead and put a thick outside border around that. Here's where we're gonna put the total cost of what we need to reimburse everyone for. Okay, so what that means is we have to add all of these cost items together. So if I was to do this, what we call the long way, equal sign, parentheses, and then I'm going, okay, G3. And notice that once I hit G3, do you see how it put a box around it for me, a little bounding box in a different color? So Excel is trying to help me know visually which ones I'm putting together, okay? Plus sign for addition. Then we can do G20, let's see, oh, G4, okay? Then it makes G4 red. Plus sign G5, plus sign G6, plus sign G7, plus sign G8, plus sign G9, plus sign G10, plus sign G11, plus sign G12, parenthesis. Okay, so now we've got them all in here. And just so y'all know, if you notice, do you notice how I had a lowercase g up here for G12? That's okay. The lowercase, capital case, it doesn't matter. It'll still create it for you. Okay, so here is basically the sum of everything in column G. If I hit enter, that's going to tell me how much our organization is going to reimburse folks for the picnic. Okay, questions about how I did that?
I don't see any so far.
No questions so far. Okay, now if I tap on cell G13, you'll notice the results are displayed within the spreadsheet. So it tells me 134.39. Up above though, again, this is called the formula bar because that's where the formula is going to appear. Okay, so the result will appear down here. Oops, sorry, I need to do that. The result will appear down here, but the formula is going to appear up in the formula bar. All right, I'm going to go ahead and delete all this out and say, now, that took a long time, right? And I had to make sure I wasn't making any mistakes with the plus and which cells and everything else. It takes a lot of effort. there's an easier way to do, to enter the formula. And I'm going to show you the second way, and then I'm going to show you a more simple way. So the second way that we just talked about was using the control key to pick each of our spots. So I'm going to hit =, parenthesis, G, let's see, G3. Then I'm going to hit plus. Then if I hit the control key, I can hit this one and this one, 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 and this one. Okay, and then I hit that. Now this works with addition because we're adding them all together, and then I'll hit enter. Okay, and you see how it came up with no value there? That's because I did not put the plus sign in between all of these. Okay, so if you want to use the control key and find them on the actual spreadsheet, you can, but you have to remember, so if I hit the control key on my keyboard and I pick this one, you have to remember to also hit the plus key, excuse me, in between. So then I can hit control 25 plus control 10, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I'm gonna grab a quick drink here. Any questions about that? The second way to do it?
I don't see any questions so far.
Okay, so if let's say I just wanted to do these three, then I would put the parenthesis around it and hit enter. Okay, now that's only going to be these first three. So down here, this formula only represents those first three costs. Okay, now I have an even easier way to do this. Okay, the easier way to edit, or basically to copy everything, actually I want to copy it first. So if we want to, let's say, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say equals G, let's do G, let's see, G3 plus G. Let's say we know that we're going to see a couple of people on a certain date. So we want to make sure we have that much money with us in cash so that we can just hand it out to them. So I'll hit enter, and we've got 55. Now, let's say I don't want that here because this is supposed to be the total cost. So maybe I want another one down here that says Roberto, Gilbert, and Lorenzo, and because we're going to see them first. I can take this function formula here, and I can copy it, and I can paste it down here where it's just going to be these three. Okay, so if I've got this, I can come up here where it says, okay, oops, sorry, gotta go one more. Okay, so we're going to click on the cell with the formula. Okay, and then we're going to go up to the clipboard group and do the copy icon. Okay, that's this one here with the two pieces of paper. So we're going to say copy, and it's going to put those little marching ants around it. That means that I've copied it. And then I'm going to select my new place where I want it to go, and I'm going to say paste. And more than paste, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit paste here where it's going to paste with the formulas. Okay, so I do that, and then what it's going to do is it's going to paste with the formula. But you notice we have not set this to be the right formatting for what we've got here. So it should be, let's see, we've got 20, 25, and 10. So it should be, let's see. Oh, sorry, I did. Look, so here's something to know as we're doing the live demo. This is why it's helpful that it gives us this formula up here. If I look here, I've done 4, 5, and 6, not 3, 4, and 5. So if I wanted to do Roberta, Gilbert, and Lorenzo, I have to come back here and change this to 3 and this to 4 so that it's G3, G4, and G5 instead of, okay? So that's one way you gotta make sure that you check your formulas and make sure you're putting the right cells together. So if I do that, I hit enter, then I get that 55, okay? So, but what happens when I copy it is it might change the cells that are listed there, okay? So you gotta be careful about that and make sure you change your cells back. All right, okay, Questions about that, about copying a formula?
I don't see any so far.
Okay, perfect. So the next thing I want to show you.
Oh wait, we do have a hand raised.
Sure, yes.
I thought the last where you did it was more complicated than the first one.
Yes, and they're both a little complicated. And I'm about to show you a way that's much easier.
Oh, that's not the easy. The last one wasn't the easy one.
Yeah. Yes. The one that I'm about to show you though is because so many people use Excel and they do things like the sum of so many things. They actually have a shortcut where a key called the Autosum, where it will do all that work for you. So that's what we're going to do next.
So why would you do a few at a time?
Yeah.
Just to make
again,
the addition easier, or what?
Right. So, well, it would only be if you only wanted a certain. So if we only wanted the cost of, the first 4 or 5 people, we could do it that way, where we would just do it individually like that.
Oh, okay.
But once you have enough people, I mean, it's more efficient to use the Autosum.
Okay.
Yeah.
I look forward to the easy one.
Yes. Yes. So, and we're going to do it right now.
Okay.
Okay. So if we want to do the total cost of everyone, and we're going to come down here, and this is where we want it to go. There are 2 different ways to find the Autosum button. You can go to Formulas, which is this tab up here. And I encourage you to spend some time with the Formulas tab up here to find some other formulas that you can use, like financial formulas. We talked about average, so you could find the average. So if you were wondering, how much you've paid in rent, average amount of rent you've paid over the last 5 years, if your rent has increased a little bit each year, you could find the average of that. You can find, there's trigonometry functions, there's all sorts of functions that you can use. Today, though, we're just going to do a very simple one where we're going to do an Autosum. So we've put our cursor in the cell that we want the Autosum to land, where we want the result, and we're going to tap Autosum. Now, if you notice, what we've got here, the marching ants in blue have highlighted, or basically selected, all of the cost numbers that they see in G, okay? And so it says equals sum G3 through G12, okay? So I hit enter, and it'll sum all of them together. You could also create this, because it's addition, you could create this formula yourself without having to type in, G3 plus G4 plus G5. You could do it with the colon like this, and that is known as a range, okay? So you have a range. The first cell to the last cell is a range of cells, okay? And to represent that, you can put the colon between them, okay? So that is an easier way, in my opinion, a more efficient way, shall we say, to get the summation of how much your total cost is going to be. Okay. Questions about that?
I think we're good so far.
Okay. The other place you can find the Autosum, because it's used so frequently, if you go back to the Home tab and you over to Editing, and you can see the Autosum here too. Okay, so if I do the same thing where I put right here and I say Autosum, it's going to pick what I'm supposed to sum, and then I can hit enter. You do have the flexibility of picking other numbers too. So if you wanted to sum other things besides just straight down the column, you can do that. You could sum everything across a row instead. You can also pick different places and different numbers. So let me go ahead and delete that out. So for example, if I had a range of, if I had 4, 5, 6, and I wanted the summation of 4, 5, 6, I can put it down here and I can say Autosum. And what it's going to go is, all right, I've populated the formula for you, but Excel doesn't recognize anything directly above or directly beside it. So that's why it's giving you the one where it's not finished. And then you would have to put in, B what is that, B18, and then plus C20, right? 20, yep, plus D22. Okay, so then you can see again, it's highlighted to help you out which cells you've picked. Oh, see, and 22 is not the one I want. I want 21. Okay, and then I can hit enter and it'll give me the sum of those. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that because I think it can make it a little bit easier to do these things with summations. But again, you want to make sure that you confirm with your formula that it's picking the right cells. That's probably the biggest thing with Excel is making sure that you get the right cells in there. Okay. Any questions about that?
I don't see any so far.
Okay, we're almost done. I did want to show you a couple of things that might happen with your formulas. So what if I did Autosum here under the picnic items? And it's going to go, wait a minute. Are you trying to type a formula? Do you want a sum of things you've put? And you go, oh, okay. Because what happened is I was telling it to do a sum of these. It's going to go, there's no numbers there. So the sum is 0 because there's nothing to add together. Okay, so you want to be careful about that. If I put the Autosum back in here, and let's say my column is a little bit smaller. If my column is too small to show the numbers, it's going to show hash marks instead. Okay, so if you ever see a hash mark, that's okay. It just means you need to lengthen your column so that everything can appear there. Okay, so that means that there is something there. It's just that we have to figure out what happened to it. Okay, all right. And then if you have we had it earlier where it was a value instead, you might get, let me see if I can do it with this. So if let's say I try to Autosum this, and I'm just going to go ahead and select them all and hit enter. Okay, so same story. It says 0 because it doesn't recognize these as numbers. So if I took out the hyphens though, in a couple of them, but I left it in, say, that one, and now I try to sum it, it's going to tell me that it's exactly that, because that's the only cell that it can determine is a number in the traditional sense of being able to add it together. Okay. All right. Questions about that? And there are a couple of other things that can happen too as you get into more complicated formulas with division and multiplication. And I've included a couple examples in the handout, but we won't spend time going over it today. You know, things with averages and percentages and things like that. So, okay.
I don't see any questions either.
Okay, because I do want to go on and I want to show you a couple of other things that are helpful. If, for example, you were making a weekly schedule, perhaps something like here at the library where we have to fill a desk with people, you can have Excel recognize a pattern and auto-complete that pattern for you. So if we were starting with days of the week, for example, we put Monday and then we put Tuesday and Wednesday. And then we're like, you know, Excel could fill in the rest of the days for us because it'll recognize there's a pattern. So if I highlight Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, select those 3, that's enough information for Excel's programming to figure out that what you want to appear next is going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But the way to make that happen is down here in the little green, if you can see the little green, I'm hoping it will increase the size here. Can you see the little green square at the bottom right-hand corner of D19 where it says Wednesday at the very bottom right corner? And there's a little pop-up here that says quick analysis.
Yes, I feel like maybe scroll up so that's more at the top of the screen because I think some of the transcription might be covering it.
Okay, let me do it up here. Then I'm going to insert I'll insert a new row, a couple rows here. Okay, so here's how to insert a row. For those of you who weren't here last week, to insert a row or a column, you just right click and say insert, and it'll place it above the column you've selected or the row you've selected. Okay, so here I'm going to type Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like that. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom in a little bit better here. Let's see. All right, can we see the open? That make it all bigger?
I feel like it made the text bigger, but the square seems like it's the same size.
Okay, let me see if I can make it. Yeah, it might not be moving that too much. Okay. In the live demo on the projector board, it's a little easier to see, but there is this little dot. I mean, it looks like a dot probably. Do you see how the cursor goes from being kind of a white cross to a black cross there? I'm hoping everyone can see it.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so what we're going to do when we highlight the 3 of these, Excel can recognize that this is a pattern. And when we get the black cross with no arrows, it's just a black cross. You know, the other one has little arrows on the end. That's not the one we want. We want the one that just looks like a black cross. If we hold down the mouse button and we move to D, see how it says Thursday underneath? And then Friday, hopefully, if I get far enough here in my demo, Friday, and, you know, Saturday, Sunday, and then back to Monday. If I let go, Excel will auto-populate that information, so I don't have to type it again. So now we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Okay. So if you're doing things like making schedules and you want to repeat, you know, you want it to recognize a pattern of 9 to 10 o'clock, 10 to 11 o'clock, 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, like in a schedule, you can put that in there and then pull right here on that little green box after you've selected them, and it'll auto-complete for you. It's called the autofill. Okay, now the autofill can also do other things too. So if you clicked on this, you can see it that right now it's doing the fill series. So there's some other things it can do there too, like the days and the weekdays and stuff. But I just wanted you to know that that is an option and that it exists, and feel free to play with that. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and delete that and come back. Any questions about autofill? It's something fun to play around with, and it kind of does a lot of the typing for you, which is kind of nice.
I don't see any questions.
Okay. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about is sorting, and then we'll be all set for today. So I thought sorting might be also useful given if you're wanting to either like check people in, register people for an event, something like that. So to sort your data to arrange it kind of in a meaningful way for you, right now we have it set. These folks are not organized in any specific way. So they're not alphabetical by last name or first name, and I'm going to go ahead and put back the dashes here in our phone number. Okay. They're not organized by who's bringing what. So let's go ahead and try to organize them in some meaningful ways. So the first way that might be meaningful is alphabetical, so it's easier for you to find them. So I'm going to put it to you. Would you prefer if we organize them by their first name or their last name? I'm putting that to the chat. So go ahead and answer in the chat if you think we should do it by first name or last name. Any responders?
I have a responder and it's last name.
All right, so we're going to do it by last name. Now that's great because right now, if you notice, our first column is the first name and the last name is the second column. So if I went ahead and just tried to sort this and I come up to editing, which is the editing group, which is off on the far right here, and I say, okay, I'm going to sort this, and I tap on sort, I get the option to sort A to Z or Z to A. If I pick A to Z right now, it's going to sort by the first name, okay? Because it's just picking that first column of data that we selected. But we want it to be by last name. So to do last name, we have to go to sort and filter, and we have to pick custom sort, because custom sort will let you actually pick your your different values here. When we do that, we have to make sure we grab the categories here, because those are what you're going to sort by. So we have to make sure we select row 6 where we have all of those things in there. Okay, then we can go to sort and filter, custom sort, and it's going to say the column you can sort by. So you can sort by first name, last name, address, up through reimbursement. Okay, so all of our categories. So we've picked last name. So we're going to sort by last name, and we're going to sort, do we want to go Z to A or A to Z? Do we want to start with the end of the alphabet or start with the beginning of the alphabet? What do you think? As someone who has a W for her last name, and my locker was all the way toward the end of the alphabet, all the way toward the end of the
Mine was too.
range
I
of
was
lockers,
always at the end.
I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to actually sort it Z to A. We're going to put those people with last names in the W's first. Okay, so when we sort by last name and we're sorting values and we do the order Z to A and we click OK, you'll see that now it has sorted by the alphabetical in reverse. Okay, super fun, right? Love it.
We would have
Now-
been locker buddies.
We totally would have been locker buddies. Okay, so let's see, what else can we sort by that might be meaningful to us? What do you think? What other category might be meaningful? Any suggestions from the chat? What if we wanted to make sure we have a good balance and we don't have only main dishes or only desserts?
Yes, someone says food items.
Yes, very good. You right where I was thinking. All right, so we'll come down to custom sort, and instead of picking sort by last name, we'll sort by the picnic category, and we'll click OK. And then it's going to sort by the picnic category. So we now know that we've got 1, 2, 3 people bringing side dishes, 2 people bringing main dishes, 3 people bringing drinks, and 2 people bringing desserts. Okay. Now, what if I want to know who has spent the most money? How would I do a sort for who spent the most money? What do we think? If I come up to sort, custom sort, what should we sort by?
Cost.
Yes, cost, exactly. So I'm going to pick cost, and we're going to go largest to smallest because we want the who spent the most to pop out first. And we'll click OK. So it looks like Gilbert spent the most for the tofu hot dogs. Okay, now I want to put one caveat in here as we're doing all of this custom sorting. If you've noticed, when I'm sorting, I'm grabbing the entire data selection to sort. If I only grabbed, say, Gilbert and Roberta, and I did sort, custom sort, and I picked, it's going to try to sort by the amount because I haven't picked the category. So let's pick the category. So we're going to pick the category and we're going to pick these first 2. And if I say sort now, custom sort, and I sort by, let's do picnic item and say OK. Now, did you notice how nothing changed because they stayed in the same place as our last sort? But that's okay because we're sorting by the picnic item. Okay. Here's what I want us to notice. You see that reimbursement, we still haven't filled out reimbursement for Tom, right? When I sort and I don't collect everything, so let's say I sort just through cost, and I do custom sort and I say, okay, oops, sorry. Again, I didn't grab the column. So I grab the column and I come over just like this. So I'm not including the column for reimbursement. And I say custom sort, and I sort by, let's sort by last name. And I say, and we'll do A to Z. Whoops, A to Z. And I say, okay. So that's sorted by first name. And you notice, at least in this case, who was our person who, I already forgot, who was our person who didn't have, who hadn't, was it Gilbert who hadn't submitted? I already forgot. Let me go back, edit, undo. All right. No, it was Tom. So Tom hadn't done, we hadn't gotten a reimbursement to Tom yet. So when I do a sort without grabbing everything, and I do custom sort by picnic item, and we do, A to Z. Okay, note that that has changed, and now it's Becky. Because what I'm sorting is this. I'm not sorting column H. Okay, so just be careful when you do those custom sorts that you grab all of your data that you need to select, because otherwise you can mess things up if there's an open blank space in there. Okay. Okay, questions about that?
I think we're okay so far.
Okay, well, that was the last thing I had, was just to show you the ability to kind of sort things in a way that might be meaningful to you, to help you out while you're working to check off whether or not you've given people their reimbursement and everything else. Okay. Other questions? Questions about Excel in general?
We have a raised hand.
Sure.
Let me go ahead and get that set.
Okay. I noticed, like, when you first sorted names into last names, and then you did another sort, the other things changed back to where they were. Like now, they're not still in the last name format.
Correct.
Because you
Yes.
changed others. So when you change one of the other, changes the other, what you did first?
Yeah. So what I have to do is I have to make sure that I select everything that I want to change or want to sort by a certain category, and then I can sort it. The one that I did to show you that the blank space will move is because I didn't grab this column. So if we want to go back, you can hit the edit undo, and that'll take you back a couple of spaces to where we were before that. So this was let's see. Was this the one where we had, no, I think it was this one where we did who spent the most money. And then it's going to switch. So who spent the most money? Then if I do it again and I do it by last name, then everything will switch to being organized by the last name. So it should change based on your parameters for your custom sort.
But for each of them, even following the others you're doing, you should still cover the all of them, everything, so that
yes, yeah,
the previous one stays in place.
Right, exactly. So we always want to make sure that we're grabbing our entire selection, even if the only thing we're trying to change is where we see who spent the most. Yeah.
Okay. And then next time you do another, the ones you've changed are in place already.
Yes. So for example, Gilbert spent the most money, but he wouldn't be first alphabetically. So if I went up here to custom sort and I changed them to changed it to last name, and we do alphabetical by A to Z. Oops, hold on, A to Z. You'll see that he's now in the middle, but he still spent the most money.
Right.
Yeah, great question. Does that answer?
Yeah, I just noticed when we, the names are not, didn't stay in last name alphabetically when we were doing other changes.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. So everything will shift based on which category you're selecting that you want to know that information. So when you want it to be, okay, who spent the most money, and you want to find it very quickly, you can do everything, and then that'll bump Gordon to the top, Gilbert Gordon to the top, because he's the one who spent the most money. If you wanted to do it, say you wanted to do it based on reimbursement date, and how many people did we reimburse on, the 5th, how many did we reimburse on the 9th? You could also sort this by that too, and sort it by reimbursement date and group them all together. Or like we did with the, excuse me, like we did with the category for picnic, where we grouped them all together. So here, you know, it's drink, side dish, main dish, side dish. But if you wanted them all to be next to each other, so you knew how many people were bringing a side dish, how many people were bringing a main dish, you could sort exactly by that too.
Yeah.
And then if you found that you didn't have enough of a balance, you could be like, hey, so I know you said you wanted to bring a dessert, but you know, we already have someone bringing a whole bunch of, we already have someone bringing, you know, 3 different kinds of desserts. So maybe if it's okay with you, instead of bringing an apple pie, maybe Lorenzo, you can bring a side dish or a main dish instead. So
what I'm seeing is the selections don't have to necessarily benefit the other, you know, because it changes. Like if you know, I mean, if you had the alphabetical order, if you're checking who, you know, the people bringing different items, it will change their names. It will change their setting anyway in the naming, you see.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
with this simple custom sort, yes.
Right.
There are ways that you can do it in the you know, in a more advanced class, we could show how to keep everyone alphabetical, and then you can write rules that then will make it so, and they're called macros, where you can sort by the different columns and like,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And even to the point where, and this is a more advanced thing, but you can even set it so that everyone that brings a side dish, it changes color. So everyone who's bringing a side dish is red. Everyone who's bringing a main dish is blue. Everyone who's
Right.
bringing a
Okay.
dessert is
I see
yellow.
now. Right. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some more advanced things that you can do if you once you get into Excel a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes that's nice because it helps you pick, especially if you have a lot of information, you have a lot of data, and you want to immediately see certain things. You can set one to be, say, okay, I want to know everybody who spent more than $10. And you can set it so that it says, okay, everybody who spent more than $10, they're going to be red. And then you can easily kind of scan and see, okay, these are all the people that have spent more than $10.
Okay.
So, and that's yeah. That's a little bit more advanced than what we're covering in the basic 2 workshops, but it is possible.
This is another question. The YouTube, you said YouTube, the lessons we're going to be having to follow up with what is it called? The recordings on YouTube.
Mhm.
Are they going to be in a format where we can be practicing on our own?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what I suggest doing is, and here at the library, we actually have computers with 2 monitors
Oh,
too.
okay.
So you could
I was
come
just
in and you
wondering,
could
how do you do
watch
that?
on one and use Excel on the other. But even if you're at home, you can split it among your screen, and you can just pause the video whenever you're working on something to follow through. I also do want to show everybody a couple of other resources that you can use too that will help with practicing. But I want to make sure I've answered your questions first.
Yeah, but I'm wondering how to do it on a screen. I have a Mac.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. So if you have Excel on your Mac, you can go ahead and just open it. If you don't, you could try the online version, which is going to be similar to what this one is.
No, I want to be doing what you've been teaching.
Okay. Then
but
I would
know how to do it on the same computer.
Sure. Then I would suggest if you come into the library, we have what are known as our creation stations, and you can come in and you can use them. Those are those ones with the dual monitors, and you can have the video on one side and then do everything in Excel at the same time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. If you want to practice at home, when you don't have Excel, there are some things you can use that you can watch, sort of get used to it. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that and jump into my PowerPoint again and just jump down to, this is all the stuff we've covered. So, and everyone will get a copy of this handout too. Oh, and you know, Rebecca, I actually did, I did put it, but I didn't put it in the chat. The link for the PowerPoint today, if anybody wants to grab it today.
Yes, let me go ahead and do that
okay.
right
Do you want to
now.
put that
I
in the
forgot
chat
as well. Yes.
Okay. I just remembered it just now.
Yes, let me find that real quick.
So here are some additional resources as well. If you have a Champaign card, Gale Courses and LinkedIn Learning have some really nice video. Well, LinkedIn Learning has a lot of videos that you can watch that'll walk you through certain things that you can do with Excel. Gale Courses is actually a 6-week course that's an introduction to Microsoft Excel with lessons that you do. And there's actually an instructor teaching it and a discussion section where you can ask your questions of the instructor. GCF Learn Free is a free online resource that also has a basic Excel tutorial that you can walk through. And then I also included some keyboard shortcuts because I think those sometimes are really nice for those of us who are not such mouse people but like to use the keyboard a lot. So if I stop sharing that, I can share the screen that I have up with GCF. So GCF Learn Free, and here's their Excel basics. So you could just hit getting started with Excel, and then it walks you through, and there's a video that you can watch, and then you can watch the other Excel tutorials. So if you have an older version of Excel that isn't 2016 but is 2013 or 2010, they also have other versions too. So if you're using an earlier version, you can refer to one of their earlier Excel tutorials too. And then it will, just like what we did, it'll walk you through, you know, where you find everything and the parts of the window, the ribbon, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So you can also look through their stuff too. Okay. And then for LinkedIn Learning and Gale Courses, you can find, if you go to champaign.org, that's our website, and you can go to eLibrary and then online tools. And then you can click on LinkedIn Learning, which will bring you here, or Gale Courses, which brings you here. And then you can log into those with a Champaign card. Okay, I'll go ahead and stop sharing that. So yeah, we do have some extra resources, and we also have books, of course, here in the library too, on Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And PowerPoint is actually what will be, Rebecca will be teaching PowerPoint for the next 2 weeks. Again, Tuesdays at 2 o'clock. You can come and join us to learn about PowerPoint.
We have another hand raised. Let me go ahead.
Yeah.
All that resource information you showed and talked about, will it be in the email?
Yes, it will. Yep, it's in the handout. It's under the title Additional Resources.
Okay.
Yes, and I just put the link for the handout in the chat. So if you click on that link, that should pull up the handout, and you should be able to get into those resources from there as well.
And you can save it right to your own computer if you want, or you can wait until we email it to you in probably next week, I'm guessing. Okay. We're usually pretty good about our turnaround time.
Thank you.
With those. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming today.
I enjoy this.
Yeah, this is just a very small portion of what you can do with Excel. It's a very powerful tool.
Oh yeah, you can do so much stuff that is probably even just beyond what I even think of Excel.
Yeah,
people just have jobs doing just Excel.
Yep, I have a friend who did his degree in statistics, so he uses Excel all the time with different data points and data sets and sorts, and does exactly what we're talking about with the macros, where he can change color, changes colors, does everything that's greater than 2 gets to be blue, and everything that's less than 2 is yellow or whatever, in order to sort and filter through his data really easily. So
yeah,
I'm happy to learn the bit I learned.
Yeah, and I'm not to the place where he is, where he uses it all the time for all of that. I appreciate Excel. I appreciate what it can do for me in my life and my existence, and what I need it for, which is more stuff like if I'm hosting a picnic, who's bringing what. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for today?
I don't see any more questions, but feel free to reach out to us. If you have questions after the webinar, we're always available to help with those. And I can actually right now, let me put our emails into the chat.
Great.
And that way, if you think of something later and you're like, oh man, I wish I would have asked that during class, feel free to just reach out to us and we can help answer that. So I've got, your email in there, Susan. Let me put in
Great.
mine as well. Make sure I
And
spell everything
you
right.
can also reach out to us if you would like us to give you tours of the resources like LinkedIn Learning and Gale courses. We can also, show you how to access those and get you started in them too. All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending
you.
today. Have a good afternoon.
Hope to see you for PowerPoint.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.